I started off the year with a notice that my orchestra budget has been cut. That's no fun. What am I going to do? Well, I've taught through a recession before and I've experienced budget cuts before, so I'm just going to put out some tips drawing from my past experience and the experience of others on how to get through it. Welcome to Teaching Orchestra. Even if you are not experiencing a budget cut, you're still probably going to have some sort of a budget, right? And there's probably a limit to the amount of money that you can spend. So I'm glad that you're not being affected if you don't have a budget cut right now, but I hope that there's still something at least that you can take away from this video that you find helpful, okay? So here's tip number 1. Make a spreadsheet. I'm putting this at number 1 because it really helps to draft a plan of how you're going to spend your money this year. Just thinking of your budget as a number might work well if you have a nice cushy budget with a lot of room to play around. But if we're constricted, we need to plan. What are our expenses this year? How many trips are we going to take? What are the transportation costs? Do we have contest fees? How much are we going to spend on instrument maintenance and repair? We have to prioritize our needs from our wants. I like buying new music, and there's a ton of great new music coming out, and I want all of it. But this is a want, not a need. I have music that I can recycle. I don't want to do that. I don't want to play these pieces again. I don't want to play the same piece that I did in 2016, but I have appropriate music. It's a want, not a need. I can get through the year without it. Paying for buses to go and play at graduation at the end of the year is a want, not a need. Could we walk to the stadium? It's like 3 miles with instruments, so we could, but also we could ask the parents to help drive students. Okay, what else could we do without? Now, we're expected to go to UIL concert and sight reading, and the entry fees keep going up. It's like $500 a group now, and I take 3 groups, so there's no way around this. I'm spending $1,500 on this no matter what. If we don't pay, we don't play. If we don't play, my administrator is not going to be very happy with me, and it's going to have a negative impact on my program and my career. So first, budget for your needs and see how we can manage the wants. Make sure to document this. You might need this later, and throughout the year, track every penny that you spend. You shouldn't have to ask how much money is left in your account. You should keep track. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I will anyway, so just don't tell anyone. Over the years, I've found discrepancies. There have been times where my account has been billed by mistake or a deposit that didn't go into the right account. So it pays to keep track, like literally in this case, it literally pays. All right, here's number 2, share your music library. This takes a little bit of time, but if you catalog your music and you share it with other teachers in your area, other teachers can see what you have, and you might be able to lend out music to them. They might also do the same to you. So when the cost of music keeps going up, you can see if someone else has a copy to lend you and simply return it after the concert. We play about 6 concerts a year. Let's guess that we average about 10 works per concert. That's about 60 pieces of music. Let's look at Penders to see how much music is going for these days. $55, $60. Let's look at some full orchestra. $325, $56, $140, $120. If I'm buying all brand new pieces, I could easily spend $5,000 on music without even trying. Or I could borrow from another teacher. Well, you might be thinking, I'm new to teaching. I don't know orchestra teachers in my area. Well, you know me. Send me an email, teachingorchestra@gmail.com. I'll share my spreadsheet with you, and I'd be willing to mail you some stuff if you promise to give it back when you're done, and all that good stuff. Hey, let's look at that full orchestra list again. Here's Mozart's Symphony No. 41. That's in public domain. That's going to be on IMSLP. You can download some scans of that right now for free. Now, like Susan H. Day is not going to be on IMSLP. William Owens is not going to be on IMSLP. So if you're teaching beginning strings, this trick probably won't work well for you, but it's a huge library of music, and during a recession, you can take full advantage of it. Here's tip number 3. Stop falling for scams. What's more likely? That your students sound bad on the E string because they don't have a gold-plated string, or they're changing their bowing angles to get around their right leg. The fact that these companies, Tomastic, Purastro, Diodaro, they all keep making this stuff, and they keep making it because somebody keeps buying it. The gold plating is just going to rub off. It doesn't do anything except turn your fingers black. So stop wasting your money on this kind of stuff. Just get some basic helicore strings, and that's probably going to be good enough for most kids. They're cheap, but not so cheap that they won't last. And they make them in fractional sizes. The rest you can probably fix with technique for now. Also, don't buy sets. You aren't going to replace all the strings at the same rate. A strings tend to break a lot more than G strings, so get what you need and don't end up with a bunch of extras. Along these same lines, you don't need gadgets. I'm not saying there's no place in them in orchestra ever, but in a budget crunch, you don't need shaker eggs, you don't need wrist braces, you don't need a bow keeper. This is not the year to replace your pillow blankets. You don't need fingerboard oil, you don't need cello bibs, and you don't need magic rosin. Just use regular rosin. All right, here's tip number 4. Take care of your stuff. You can save money on repairs by having high expectations for your students. I use the 2-hand rule. You always have to have 2 hands on your instrument. I'm also a stickler for end pins. I do not allow my cellists and bassists to walk around with their end pins out. Do you know how much it costs these days to replace a cracked end pin bushing? About $400 each. Now, you know how many cello bibs I can buy for $400? When it's warm and humid, have your students check their bridge every day. If it's leaning, straighten it before it warps. How much is a bridge replacement? From like $50 to $150. During the cold and dry months, check for cracks and splits. If the weather is changing a lot, check your seams, especially on the low strings. If you can catch this stuff early, it's just going to be a small repair to get it re-glued. I think the shop I use charges $20 per inch or something like that. But if that separation goes unnoticed, the seam is going to open up more and more, and it's going to get more expensive. All right, the crack is going to run more, and they might have to take the top completely off, and that's going to be more expensive, or the ribs or whatever. Sometimes when the seams start to come open, there's a weakness in the ribs, and sometimes the glue will hold, but the ribs break away instead, and that's really going to be expensive. A $20 repair can turn into a $1,000 repair in a week if nobody shows it to you. So you might want to take some class time each day during the times where the weather's changing a lot and have them check the seams, especially for the low strings. That's where they tend to open up the most. And you can save a ton of money on repairs this way. Tip number 5, spend your money early. Try not to have money in your account by January. Why? Because in most cases, it's not really your money and it can be taken away from you. They might not even tell you about it. The student council might need money for prom decorations or t-shirts or whatever, and they look at your hefty account balance and say, well, the orchestra doesn't appear to be doing anything with this. Let's repurpose these funds, and poof, it's gone. You might be scared because what if you need something towards the end of the year? What if a disaster happens? Okay, here's what you do. Whenever you budget for repairs, see if you can get an open PO or purchase order with your repair company. Say, hey, we're going to pay in advance for these repairs. Here's a PO, and whatever we don't spend, they will refund you at the end of the year, and you'll have some funds for more Pokemon branded pitch clips or whatever. You can probably do the same thing with your transportation department to reserve and pay for buses or whatever expenses you're going to have later on, or the stuff before winter break, all right? These are my 5 tips. Now, I want to end this video on what to do if you run out of money. Look, I've run out of money before. One year, Hurricane Harvey came through and dumped 2 years worth of rain on us in just a couple of hours. The roof didn't hold up and water leaked into our instrument storage room, and there was a lot of damage. All of our instruments are self-insured through the school district, which basically means that we don't have insurance, so I had to go begging for money. Whenever I've gone to ask for money, I treat it like a business meeting. As much as I want to, I don't go crying, don't go in all emotional. I try to be like the Shark Tank personalities. I put on a nice suit, not a tuxedo, but a professional looking suit and tie. I take my laptop and I come in with data. And in this case, I came in with quotes and I had my spreadsheet with my budgets. Remember tip number 1? That's why tip number 1 is so important. And if you can show your tracking and planning, you're going to have a completely different level of conversation than you would without it. So you can say, I have 12 cellists per class, and I need 12 working cellos. To fix them, I need $3,000 with my lowest quote here. Given my budget, I'm going to have to cut some contests, okay? We won't be able to play at this school district fundraiser because we don't have the money for buses, and we won't be able to do our elementary school tours. Now you're not just asking for money. Now you're giving your administrator options. Do you want to do this or do you want to do this? Because this is how much money we have. And in my case, my administrator said, okay, let's not have live music at the fundraiser this year. We can just use a CD. You can pre-record it, and I can use these funds over here to cover the rest. Let's take another example of when I underestimated my repair costs at the end of the year. Again, I treat it like a business meeting. I put on a suit. I brought my data. Okay, this was my budget. This is how I spent my money. I had a student drop a bass, it fell backwards, and the neck snapped. I asked the kids' parents if they could help with the repair, but the dad just got laid off and they don't even have enough money left over to pay rent, and they're facing repossessions on their vehicles. In my case, my administrator looked through the other accounts and found some money left over from another account over here that could help cover the cost of the repair. Again, that was a completely different conversation than if I came in with my hand out saying, we had a whoopsie, can I have some money please? You're showing that you're on top of things, but accidents happen and not everything is inside your control. And they are way more likely to work with you if you have the data available and you're treating this seriously. You're probably not the only person coming in begging for money at the end of the year, and they have to pull out your budget and go through it. And if they start looking through your budget and they see that you spent $400 on Christmas ornaments that you gave your beginners, which seemed like a really good idea at the time, or if your administrator finds some other knickknacks, she might not be as receptive to your request for additional funds. What not to do. And this is probably the worst thing that you can do when it comes to your orchestra finances, just short of embezzlement. And this is going around your administrator. If you go to your administrator and they say, sorry, I can't fix your bass right now. Can we wait until the next budget cycle? And then you go around them and you go to the school board and you just throw your administrator under the bus. Number one, the school board is probably going to talk to your administrator anyway before they approve the transfer of funds. And number two, your administrator will probably never trust you again. So is it worth burning that bridge forever for a $1,500 repair? I personally would try to get some Elmer's glue and glue it back myself before I pulled that stunt. But hey, It's my situation. I might be different, and I have a family to feed, so your mileage may vary. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that there was something in here for you. If you have an orchestra budget and you have a tip that I didn't go over, please leave a comment below. All right, anyway, things are going to be a little tough for me this year. We're going to have to tighten our belts a little bit, but I'm going to be fine. And I've ordered a case of Elmer's glue just in case. And, you know, the rancher down the road said that I could take as much horsehair as I need for our bows, so I'm going to be just fine. You, on the other hand, start panicking. Or actually, probably not. You're actually probably going to be fine too. This has happened before, and it's going to happen again, unfortunately, and we just have to get through it. All right, I'll see you in my next video.